Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Alberta Seed Guide podcast, where we dive deep into the forces shaping agriculture today. I'm your host, Mark Zinkowitz, and joining me is Jon Neutens, head of agriculture at ATB Business. Jon has a wealth of experience in the sector, from running a software company serving the grain and crop input industries to leading New Farm Canada at one point. He's also actively involved in shaping policy through industry boards like CropLife Canada and Clean Farms Canada. Jon, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's great to be here.
We talked last week with Mark Parsons of ATB Financial about the broader economic picture. Now I want to really bring this down to the farm level. So, can you explain to us, Jon, how the current economic climate, especially after last week, April 2nd was the big tariff announcement from the United States. How is the current economic climate impacting growers specifically?
Yeah, really great question. I think, obviously last week we did get some good news for the agricultural sector in terms of the immediate impact on the potential trade war with the US and some relief on tariffs, if you will, in terms of that everything under CUSMA is okay and we're good to go with that respect. There weren't additional tariffs, if you will, added to agricultural products. So from that perspective, we're in decent shape in ag. However, from a broader economy perspective, and with the broader tariffs that Trump has placed on the rest of the world, it still leaves things with some uncertainty as to where this is going to go. Obviously, the broader economic impact and what happens from a broader economics perspective can have an impact on agriculture and can have an impact on the supply and in particular the demand of what goes on in agriculture. So even without the tariffs, we were economically, from an agriculture perspective, some commodities were in good shape and some commodities have been declining. We've had declining commodity prices, generally speaking, in the grain and oilseed sector. And everyone that's in agriculture is quite aware of that and the challenges on tightening margins for the agricultural sector overall.
Yeah, the T word tariff is everywhere, of course. I swear it's in every headline right now. So I'm curious if you break down how tariffs are affecting farmers' bottom lines, market access, supply chains. I mean, these things are all interrelated. And, we hear so much about tariffs, but, it can be difficult sometimes to really wrap your head around, well, how are farmers impacted by this? Can you boil that down for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, tariffs on any agricultural goods that are exported from Canada effectively, are going to impact demand for those products. And if demand for those products, or whether it's immediate products or processed products, the demand for those products could decline, which means obviously that impacts the market prices, the commodity prices, and the ultimate price paid to the producers. So, in the case of whether it's canola or whether it's beef, if there's a decrease in demand, effectively we're going to see an impact on that price that's going to trickle down to the price that's paid to the producer. Again, as I mentioned with tariffs, the U.S. has given some relief, but for example, right now China still has tariffs on canola meal and canola oil. So that's going to reduce the demand of oil and meal into China from an export perspective out of Canada. Luckily, it's mostly canola seed that we send to China, but there definitely is some value there in the meal and oil that we send to China as a smaller portion thereof overall. So it's going to decrease the demand for that. Is that going to have an overall impact on the price of canola that feeds through and ultimately gets paid to the producer? That's going to be the question mark there. Right now, the canola market is holding, again, based on some other factors that are happening in the global trade perspective.
So, Jon, can you share a real world example of how these trade issues are impacting farmers?
When we take the beef industry as an example, if we had been impacted by tariffs significantly there, that would have posed some real challenges because of the number of live cattle that get shipped across the border every day in both directions. But generally speaking, here in Canada, we're a net exporter of live cattle to the US. So that would have had a significant impact if that tariff had been imposed. Luckily, that tariff has not been imposed. But as an example, because of the fact that that tariff was threatened, we had a lot of cattle move across the border since the beginning of this calendar year, really to try and get ahead of the tariffs. So a lot of forward selling, if you will, of cattle and forward moving these cattle across the border into the US that otherwise wouldn't have went necessarily at the time they did. So we've had a lot of cattle move, a lot of forward selling, really to try and get around the tariff situation.
So, John, given these challenges, what strategies can farmers and agribusinesses in general use to try and mitigate the negative impacts of all this and maybe even find opportunities?
Yeah, I think our agricultural sector has always been resilient. It's always looking for diversification opportunities. And we've come a long way in doing that over the last couple of decades, essentially. Adding value to products has been certainly one of the strategies, but diversifying a crop approach to your crop production has been another strategy, or just diversifying, generally speaking, even outside of crop production. So diversification strategies are important, but certainly looking for alternative markets is also important. It's definitely been a thing within Canada from an agriculture perspective, whether that's at a federal level or provincial level, or certainly even within what growers do for their own production and for their own opportunities for finding markets, is looking for some alternatives, looking for domestic versus international, but on the international side, potentially looking for other opportunities. So at the farm level, it's a bit more challenging to move in that direction, essentially, as it relates to export markets, since exports typically flow through a value chain and across to international markets. But certainly at the farm level, you can look at diversification. So, and in particular, you can obviously look at what's happening with today's commodities. What are the commodities you typically produce? And is there an opportunity to shift a little bit of your production based on the commodities that are being impacted, based on whether that's the economic outlook and the price today versus the trade opportunities or the trade wars that are having an impact, and look at how you might shift your production as much as possible given what situation you're in as it relates to your agronomic practices. That's always a consideration, of course, as well. But as an example, we know that the war with China is going to create some challenges for the US in terms of exporting soybeans to China. That's going to be probably offset by some opportunities in soybean imports into China from Brazil and Argentina, but it might create some opportunities more for canola exports to China. Even though they have tariffs on canola meal and canola oil, they don't have tariffs on canola seed. So they may look to import more canola seed going forward to offset some of the soybeans they would typically import.
Now, ATB Financial plays a big role in supporting Alberta's ag sector. How's ATB helping farmers and agribusinesses navigate these economic and trade related challenges?
Yeah, at ATB Financial, we're really fortunate to have focused on the agricultural sector really from the existence of ATB, which is 80 some odd years ago. But more recently, over the last few years, we've built a dedicated agriculture team. So we have a team that is 100% focused on agriculture. And within that dedicated team, we've really tried to work at developing our expertise, understanding what's going on in the market, staying attuned to what's going on with our clients' situations. So we're really looking, what we've done, not just within a team environment to support agriculture, but within our product portfolio. We're making sure that we've got the right products to support clients going forward. If clients get into challenging situations because of trade or other issues, we look to have some of our products have built-in payment deferral aspects and payment deferral programs. But in addition to just what's built into our products, what we've done in the past is launched different payment deferral programs that offer the grower an opportunity, or our clients opportunity, to defer not just principal, but principal and interest, even in some situations. So it gives them relief from a cash flow perspective in challenging times.
Now, if our listeners or viewers want to learn more about ATB's services or access market insights, where should they go?
Yeah, if listeners want to hear more from ATB, be really happy to talk to you. You can start by going to atb.com, and within atb.com, you can navigate to the business pages. And within the business pages, we have lots of information on what agriculture and what our agricultural products have. Also, within that, you can find the opportunity to talk to a specialist by clicking in the right spot and finding that specialist, and that would send off an email to us where we could then follow up with you. If you're within Alberta, you typically, all you have to do is walk into an ATB financial branch and ask for the ag relationship manager, and they will point you in the right direction as well, so that you can find an agriculture relationship manager that you can talk to.
Jon, thank you. That was very, very helpful. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great to be here, and great to support this wonderful community we have in agriculture.
Thank you to our audience for spending some time with us. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you found this conversation valuable, don't forget to share it with your network and help get the word out. Until next time, keep growing, everyone. Thank you so much.